when you are creating your account or getting started with LocalHop, we do have these little tabs on the left pane, and from here you can do anything and everything. So LocalHop offers a couple different features. Calendar snippets and room management are two of the largest. We do have a couple other things in the works, but I'm going to be talking about some of the new features that are accessible as of today. So within your organization, you can have an infinite number of users. You can assign custom roles to each user. So if you want to have someone who is just working at the front desk, maybe seasonal help, allow them to add guests to different wait lists, allow your patrons to reserve rooms, but you don't necessarily want them to create or edit programs and events. You can set that up dependent on what your needs are. With your forms, you can have custom forms for event registration and for room reservation. So one of the forms that I've created here is a book club form. When you set up any form, you have the option for a text field, which is a single line response, a text area, which is more of that paragraph style response, a drop down, which as you can see here allows your patrons to choose one of many from a list that you give them. And then your checkbox option allows you to upload maybe a waiver or terms of use, privacy policy, anything like that that your patrons can download and agree to. Once you've created the form, you can remove a question. It will ask you to confirm. I'll leave it for now. You can also go in and edit a question and make any of them required. And that this will show up for each individual patron that's registering for an event. So we'll save that. Moving on to notifications. Right now, the way that our notifications are set up are for one email. So if you have a generic email or there's one specific person within your library that you want to notify every time a person or group registers for an event or anytime someone signs up for a room reservation, you can go ahead and put that email address in here. Age groups, we do allow custom age groups, so each library can go in and add whatever age groups are relevant to their library. Maybe their patrons are used to a certain subset of age groups. You can go ahead and create your own. We do also color code by age groups. This is optional, but you can go ahead and associate a color to it. And then for our community calendar roll-up, LocalHop does have only 5 default age groups. I'm not sure why all of these are showing up, but the 5 that you will see would be the infant, toddler, youth, teen, adult, and senior. Again, you don't have to use any of those, but you do have to associate your custom age groups to them. The patrons won't ever see them though, if you're not using them. Additional venues, this is where you can go ahead and save addresses. So when you're creating events, you don't have to keep manually typing in specific addresses. So LocalHop will always remember your library address and then any additional venue that you save here. Moving on to event creation. So again, your event calendar will populate with all of your events, whether they are published live for the public to see or if they're still in draft status. So this is one of our newer features, so I'm going to walk you guys through this now. So I've created this book club. We will use this for our demo here. When you first start to create an event, you'll notice that the status is automatically set to draft. This means that it's not published to the public. So you can go ahead and give your event a name, categorize it by event, class, or camp, give a description, can be as detailed as you need it to be. You have the option to enter a URL if you want to direct your patrons to maybe a specific page on your website or a page on a different website. You can put that URL here. If you are doing a virtual event, you can check this box, and now you have the option to put in any of these fields. So if you choose to leave this all blank, we'll just let your patrons know that it is a virtual event and have no other information to share with them. If you choose to input any of these data fields, then we will only share the information that you've shared with us, right? So if you have a Zoom ID or a Zoom meeting, I'm sure you're all familiar with Zoom and how lengthy their URLs can be. So you can put in the full URL, and then you can give a label, which would maybe just be Zoom. And this would work like a hyperlink. So your patrons would see Zoom, and when they clicked on it, it would take them to this URL. And then you can put in your phone number, meeting ID, password, any information that's relevant. Additional information, this is maybe just a message that you want to share with your patrons. If you want to tell them to mute themselves upon entry, if you want to tell them that there's a bunch of different speakers and you want to list out who's going to be speaking, anything like that. And then finally, you have the option to share this information with everyone who comes to your website and looks at this event, or you can share it to only registered users. If you only share to registered users, that means when you set up your LocalHop ticketing, then people who register for this event will receive a confirmation email that would include all this information, and a reminder email that would again include all this information. But on your website, it would only let your patrons know that it's a virtual event. It would not include any of this information for the public to see. Otherwise, you can have in-person events, which I hope we are doing more and more of. So here, again, your organization venue is always going to be saved, and if you did have any additional venues saved, you would see those appear in this drop-down as well. From there, you can set up categories. I like to tell most people 1 to 3 categories is pretty ideal, obviously depending on what the event is. Same with age groups, whatever age group is relevant for this event. Maybe it's all of them. And then you have the option to upload an image. We do have a recommended size, but really anything that you upload works well. So then you move to save and continue, and it brings you to step 2 of the event creation process, which would be adding your date and time and setting up any ticketing. So I've went ahead and set this up as a recurring event. I set it up as a weekly recurrence every week on Sundays, starting this coming Sunday and ending at the last Sunday in November. If I wanted to edit any of these, maybe I know that this Sunday we're closing early that day, so our book club is going to be moved up until 3 p.m. till 4 o'clock. I can save that. And now my patrons know that on Sunday, November 21st, we're starting at 3 instead of our normal 5 o'clock start time. I can also remove any of these instances with a click of a button, confirm that removal, and now I only see my 3 times. To set up ticketing, you're going to go ahead and select from the drop-down. You don't have to include ticketing, and you do have the option to set up ticketing with an external URL if you're using a different platform or you have something built internally. You can just link to it from here. Otherwise, you can set up ticketing, and what that entails is selecting a button label, basically what your patrons would see and what they would click on. You have the option between register, buy tickets, or sign up, pretty much whatever is relevant for the event that you're creating. And then here's where you can add that form. So I'm going to add the book club form that we created earlier and set my event capacity to 12, and I will allow a wait list as well. When you allow a wait list within LocalHop, once your registration fills up, your patrons do have the option to add themselves to the wait list. From there, if any spots do become available on the guest list, the next person or group that is available or on the wait list will automatically be pulled up to the guest list. LocalHop does a automatic check every 5 minutes, so there's no need for you guys to go in and manually check that every day. It will automatically let them know that they've been added and that they should in fact attend the event. The option to only show on my calendar would hide this event from any LocalHop community calendar that your library is a part of, and also would hide the event from the LocalHop mobile app and website. Then from here you have, as I mentioned, new options to save as draft, save and publish, or schedule and publish. So saving as draft would do basically what you saw before. It would still show up on your internal admin calendar, but it would not be visible to the public on your website calendar. You could save and publish right away, which would immediately push this event live to the public right on your calendar, or you can schedule it. So if I wanted to schedule and publish, I get the option to select a date and time when I want this event to go live on my website. So I will just save and publish now. I get my successfully saved and brings me into my confirmation. Now it's just showing me this little card with all of my event details, and I am given a auto-generated link that I can click on and take me directly to this event page. As my patrons would see it, I can also share directly to social media right from here. And now when we go back to our event calendar, you may have noticed that this little label went from yellow to green. It was originally in draft status, and now it's published. So over here we have our little key. So any event that you see with the little LocalHop pin logo is an event that does have registration associated with it. The green label button means that the event is published live. Your patrons can view it on your website calendar. A gray label means that it's scheduled and it will go live, and then the yellow obviously is meaning that it's in draft status. All right. Questions so far? Moving along. Awesome. Is there a way to see link? Yeah, so the shareable link is always in your event. So when you click on it, just go over to your confirmation page. You can click on it right here, and you just have to scroll down. And your event URL is right there. So you can copy and paste it into marketing material. You can put, a specific link on your website to it if you want, or again, share directly to social media. Cool, no problem. Your event list is just a different view of your upcoming events. So this is going to show all your events in chronological order, and at the bottom you can see that there is a separate list for draft events, so you can kind of quickly find the events that you are still planning or working on and make those edits very quickly. All right, moving on, calendar snippets. For those of you that are familiar with LocalHop, we have made a recent change that I'm going to walk through. If you're unfamiliar, I'm going to go through it all. It's pretty simple. LocalHop allows you to copy and paste these snippets right onto your website. So that when your patrons are viewing your calendar, they're never actually leaving your webpage. The only time that they would have been leaving your website is to actually register for an event. Otherwise, all of the event details, event information, everything else is right on your website. We do have this new feature to show registration as an overlay, meaning that they're not going to punch out to a different URL. It's just going to be a little pop-up right on the screen, whether that's on a computer, iPad, phone, whatever. It's not going to be branded in LocalHop in any way. It's going to look very native to your site. So if you do want this, if you're already using LocalHop, you are going to have to re-paste in your snippet. We don't have this as like a saved feature. It is just part of the code. So right here you can see if I have it as I have this overlay equals 0, and if I change it to yes, you can see how that changes to overlay equals 1. So just be aware of that if you're already using LocalHop, and if you are going to start using LocalHop and start using the calendar snippets, make sure you decide which one you want to use before you copy and paste it. You can always change it, but that's just an FYI, I guess. So it works the same for your calendar. This is your full month view calendar, your mini calendar, which is just kind of a shrunken down version of it, and then your mini list, which is good for like a home page or a side panel. You can view it as a panel, which would be a horizontal view, or list view, which is your vertical list. We're super original with our naming over here. Okay, any questions on snippets? I'm going to move on to reports. So our reports are being revamped right now. So what I'm going to show you is just what's available right now. That doesn't mean that they're not going to get better. Let's go into our event report. Basically, all of the information that you input for whether it is a room reservation or an event, even the transactions, all of the event data here is being shown to you. So whether it's virtual event, the categories that you've associated, the age groups you've associated. Sorry, I wasn't even scrolling. When it starts, when it was created, how many tickets you have, how many tickets have been purchased. It's really all the data. So right now, the best way to filter through all this data is to download to Excel and filter that way. Again, we're working on revamping this. Moving on to room management. So with your rooms, if you are going to be letting your patrons reserve rooms or just want to be able to manage your room reservations internally via your staff, you can do both of those through LocalHop. So creating a room is pretty easy. You're giving a room name, you can categorize by room type, a little description. Here's where you can add a form. So if you wanted to ask any custom questions of your patrons, you could do that here. We have a lot of libraries that like to ask if they're part of any nonprofits or whatever kind of organization that you might be giving a discount to or just want to keep track of. You can give a fee for the room. If you guys do charge for your rooms, as an admin, you can always override the cost. So if you want to charge for-profit companies and give discounts or not charge at all any nonprofit companies, you can do that. You can allow the public to reserve the room, and if you do so, you can allow or you can require approval, meaning that anytime a patron wants to reserve the room, they would have to submit a request, and then anyone in your staff that has admin rights could go in and approve or deny those requests. You can have different limitations for each room, so you can set a minimum time block, meaning the smallest amount of time that the room can be reserved, and the maximum amount of time that the room can be reserved. You can schedule how early a room must be created versus how far in advance it can be created. And then you can set up how far or how early that a patron has to either edit or cancel their reservation. This is another new feature allowing walk-in room requests. So here, if you do have any sort of limitations for your patrons, you can allow specific rooms to bypass those limitations if they are a walk-in. So you can have your walk-in, meaning they come in super close to when the reservation starts. So the shortest amount of time we've allowed for is 15 minutes. So if I come in off the streets and I'm just pop in and I want to reserve a study room, if I'm within 15 minutes of the time that I want to reserve that room for and it is open, then I should be able to go ahead and reserve it, even if I already have 10 reservations scheduled for that same week. Another new feature is this reservation email list. I've been calling it kind of like a subscription list. Here is where you can add personal emails. So if you have, Stephanie, who is in charge of study rooms, and Joey, who is in charge of all conference rooms or adult rooms, children's rooms, whatever it might be, you can put in their personal email addresses and they'll be notified when a reservation is created only for this specific room. Same thing with the facilities email. Anyone who might be a janitorial staff or just need to know what's going on, they can be part of that as well. And then moving on from there, I'm skipping this part. We do have the option to split rooms, so if you have any rooms that can be divided into 2 or more rooms, you can set those up as parent and child rooms. That's how we've been calling it. And then room availability, you can go ahead and add availability per day. So whatever hours those might be, even if it's different chunks of time. So you could have Mondays be available from 11 to 3, closed from 3 to 4, and then open again back up 4 to 6. And then room layout. You do have to have at least one layout per room, but you can always upload a image of the room, which I highly suggest. I think it's a lot easier for your patrons to see something that they're going to walk into. And then you can set up a max capacity and a little description if that's necessary. Room equipment is anything that's going to be fixed to that room, so things that are not going to be leaving, projectors mounted to the ceilings, TVs mounted to the walls, whiteboards on the walls, anything like that. With that said, we do have the option for portable equipment, so you can add, this gives your patrons the option to add equipment onto a room reservation. So if they need, an extra TV, if they need, a projector that's on wheels or a whiteboard on wheels, anything like that that you might offer, they can always tack that on. You can also charge a fee for this equipment if necessary. Unavailable dates are just going to be dates that your library is closed. No rooms are going to be available. Your patrons and your internal staff is not going to be allowed to book any rooms on that day because no one's going to be there. Terms of use, if you do have a room policy, you can upload it, and as your patrons go in and create room reservations, they will have to be agreeing to this room policy. They'll also be able to download it so that they can read it, print it off, do whatever they want with it. Room reservation settings, this is where we're getting into limitations across the library. So if you want to limit how many active reservations your patrons can have at a time, you can do so. You can limit how many reservations are active, how many reservations they can have in a certain time period. So maybe that's 2 reservations a day, 2 reservations a week, however you want to set that up. And then we also have the option to limit per room type. So maybe you allow your patrons to have an infinite number of study room reservations, but they're only allowed to use a conference room once a week. You can set that up here. And here is part of the new walk-in feature. You can allow your patrons that come in with walk-in reservations, you can allow those to count against their limitations or not. So if it's a walk-in and that's going to count as one of their 2 reservations for the week, then I would choose yes. If they come in as a walk-in and that doesn't really matter because no one else is going to use the room anyway, then I can just choose no. Reminders are specifically if you are going to be requiring approval for room reservations from your patrons. So say I went in and I submitted a request for a room and no one looked at it and it was still sitting in pending status. If I set this to 1 day, 24 hours after I submitted that request, all of the admins would receive a reminder that this request was submitted, that it needs attention, they should go in and either approve or deny it. After that reminder is set out, I could set up another reminder. So if that request is still sitting in pending status, 8 hours after that first reminder went out, then a second reminder would be sent out to our admins as well. I'm going to leave those blank. Facilities reminder. The facilities email is an email of all the reservations upcoming. So if I set this to 1 day, the email goes out at, I believe, like 4 a.m. So if I set it to one day, I'm going to get that email at 4 a.m. for all the reservations for the next one day, so the next 24 hours, and then again the next day and the next day. So it's kind of just a way to let, maybe if you have a janitorial staff or if there's specific people you want to notify for what's coming up that day, it's a good way to send out that reminder. From the public side, LocalHop does allow your patrons to create a LocalHop account. It's not necessary for registration, for reservation at all, but we do save their email address. So if you wanted to require them to log in, we would automatically populate their name, their email address, whenever they're creating a reservation. So, and then this is how you would limit them, because we would check their email address. Otherwise, you can just say no. They can manually type in their email address if we're still going to check for the same thing. Facilities notification, again, this is that email that's just going to show you everything that's going on within that certain time frame. So if there was a specific time frame, maybe you want to see, hey, what reservations do we have going on for the month of November? You could go ahead and set those custom dates and send that out. Questions so far? Okay, Katie, let's see. Do admins still get emails if I add an email to the facility email box? Yes. So, Katie, that's a good question. I may have skipped over this in the users. So, if you do not want to receive emails, right here you can opt out to reservation emails. Again, this is for admins specifically. All admins will get notifications whenever a reservation is set up. So you can opt out. If you opt out, but your email address is still associated to one specific room, you will still get the emails for that one specific room. Otherwise, you can get them for all of them. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I answered your question. Great. Yeah, good question, Katie. Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on to room reservations. So our calendar, it's going to default to our day view calendar. So it's going to show you all the reservations you have upcoming just for today. These white boxes mean that there was nothing created. These are still open. So I could theoretically schedule a reservation for 4 o'clock today. Otherwise, I can see what's upcoming. This blue box means that this reservation has been approved and that there's no charge owed for it. So no money is owed. You can see that it is a free room, so they were never being charged. If I wanted to see what was coming on tomorrow, I could just flip over and I could see what we have going on. So now you see that these boxes are gray. This means that they are sitting in pending status. So as an admin, I can click on them. I can see, all the details that they've submitted, who it was, what they wanted to have this or reserve this room for, and I can come into my actions. I can approve or deny the reservation. I can straight up cancel it. And if I deny the reservation, it does give me a denial reason. Whatever you type in here will be sent to the patron so that they know. So they'll get an email regardless of if it's an approval or a denial. But if you wanted to give them a reason, you could do that here. Otherwise, you can approve the reservation. It will always ask you to confirm. I'll hit yes. And then there you see that it changed from gray to blue. Same thing in your reservation list. It's going to show you all of the upcoming reservations in chronological order. And it's going to show you the status right here. So here I can see Tony Stark's reservation is pending. I can go in, edit that if I want, change up any of the room details, or I can view it, and now I can see those same options that I saw in the day view, where I can approve or deny. So we can approve that. And again, you see that changed right to approved. reservation search. You can search for specific reservations. You can also edit reservations right from here. Again, that's just looking like if you wanted to change anything, maybe they want to change the layout, or they have a different expected guest count at this time, or maybe they wanted to add more equipment. Anything that they want to do, anything they want to change, you should be able to do that. And then creating a reservation from an admin side, again, you could do that from your day view by just selecting one of those white tile boxes, singles, I guess. Otherwise, you can go in here and find a day, select your time right here, and kind of move through the reservation process that way. Any questions? We have about 12 minutes left, so I do want to leave the floor open for Q&A. If there's anything you guys want me to dive into a little bit more detail, I can do that. Otherwise, now's the time if you want to. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask some questions. Or throw them in the chat box, whatever is easiest for you. A way to record how many people attend the event. So Sarah, this actually is a question I've gotten quite often in like the past 2 weeks. So we're actually working on this. We do have a couple designs in process, but we're looking at a way to add it to the reports, but also in the event itself. So you can, if it is like it right here, a ticketed event or registration is required for the event, you'll have your list of guests. You can add, that they either showed up or they were a no-show, or you can just type in a specific number of actual attendance. So that's not live right now, but that is something that will be coming. Yep. Yeah, the calendar view. So there's the day view, which again is just going to be the rooms available, the availability for today, or you can kind of flip between days. So you'll notice blue means that the reservation was approved and that there's no money owed for it. Red would mean that the reservation was approved, but there is still money owed. That means, like, if this was red when Courtney comes into pre-reservation, or she comes into the library for her reservation, I would know that I need to collect payment from her. Or gray, which means that the reservation is still pending, so it needs to be approved or denied. So that's the day view. There's also a month view, which is kind of just a quick glance at what's upcoming for the month. And then the reservation list, which is going to be all of your reservations in chronological order. Hopefully that is helpful, Virginia. Cool. Any other questions? We do have, I know some people asked about pricing. All of our pricing is on our website, so you can go to getlocalhop.com, and right over here, view our pricing. So $588 annually for calendars. This does include community calendars. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, so I'll briefly touch on that. But community calendars is kind of a way for the local businesses, nonprofit organizations, youth groups, really any organization within your community to share a calendar, right? So all they have to do is sign up for a free LocalHop account. They wouldn't have to pay anything. You could host the calendar right on your library website. They would post their events. Each organization is responsible for their own events, and they would automatically be pulled right into that community calendar. So we've had a couple success stories in some smaller communities where it's been super helpful. A lot of libraries have gotten to know other businesses. They're partnering on other events, other, things going on in the community, and kind of just building a network that way. Plus also gaining more patrons, because it is a way for residents or other, surrounding communities to find things to do near them. So even if they're not looking for library-specific events, if they're just looking for events in general, it does attract them to your website. The quickest way to copy an event and room reservation to future days. So actually, my developer right now is working on setting up recurring room reservation. So that's not live right now, but hopefully in the next couple weeks, that will be an option. But right now for events, setting up, once you have an event created, you can go ahead and duplicate it. So you can set up multiple days the same way I had. If you do it this way, right now, the people that are signing up for this event are in fact signing up for all 3 instances. So if you wanted to change that, you could just duplicate the event. It's going to copy over all of this event information that we have saved. And sorry, whenever I share my screen, it moves a little bit slower. So you can save that, and then you just go ahead and add the next date and time that you want to have this, or the type of event. Is there a way for staff to add notes, patrons for events, patrons? Yeah, right now we don't have the notes field, but this is something, Sarah, that we've also gotten requests for. So I think that's something that we have planned to put in the guest list. So specifically under each patron, you could leave a note. So good question. Yeah, no problem. Sorry, I'm looking away. I have 2 monitors. I'm trying to answer your questions while you guys can still see my screen. All right, guys. We have some more. We have about 5 more minutes, I think. I can't see that far. Yeah, 5 more minutes. If there's no other questions, I can let you guys go early. I won't take up any more of your time. If you guys do have questions, I'll put my email here in the chat box. Some of you know me. I recently just changed my name. So I just set up, I think I have to spell it. I just set up a new, not new, but just a alias. So you can still email me at ctilic@localhop.com. Otherwise, this is my new email. Feel free to email me with questions. We'll send out a follow-up, so you guys will have all of my information. You'll have Rachel's information, or Rachel will probably just give you my information. We'll see. Rachel's listening. And if you did have any questions on the website, again, we'll follow up directly with you guys, specifically regarding the website. So thank you guys for joining. If you do come up with any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for joining my webinar.